Welcome to another of METV's programs on legal topics of interest to the viewers of METV. I'm Erika Quartermaine, and I am a county judge in Sarasota County. I serve in the criminal and civil divisions, and I oversee the mental health court in Sarasota. Today, we are going to be talking about an increasingly important issue, the intersection of criminal justice and mental health. The U.S. Department of Justice estimates that more than half of all prison and jail inmates have a mental health problem. 20% are so ill that they are experiencing delusions or hallucinations while in custody. Those who work in the criminal justice field will tell you that serious mental illness is pervasive. Some may say that they belong in jail and there is no excuse for crime. But the reality is that we cannot lock up people for long periods of time for crimes like theft, drugs, prostitution, destruction of property, and other nonviolent offenses. Not only is it inhumane, but it's cost prohibitive. So how has the criminal justice responded, and what still needs to be done? With me today are three people who work with me in mental health court. Adina Bridges is the director of the newest mental health court program, Comprehensive Treatment Court, or CTC. She is a licensed mental health professional who works day-to-day with the participants of that program. Also with me is Jennifer Main. She is the director of another mental health court program called Healthcare Court. She has worked in the social services field for many years, and she currently works day-to-day with the clients in that program, as well as assisting the court with certain incompetent misdemeanor defendants. We also have Catherine Wilcox. She is a mental health advocate and does group therapy with the participants of mental health court. She also serves on the board of the Salvation Army and is very active with that organization. It is a pleasure to be here with all of you today, and I look forward to the discussion that we're about to have. So I'm going to start with Adina. How would you describe mental health court?
So mental health court was designed to bridge the gap between high recidivism in the criminal justice system. Following deinstitutionalization, more individuals were on the street and they didn't have homes, and more crimes were committed. I wouldn't necessarily place blame on anybody, but we didn't have the resources available to deal with the huge influx of individuals on the street that have mental health issues. So mental health court is used to bridge that gap and to solve a problem that we're already having in the community. What we're doing is individuals that have high recidivism for what we consider to be quality of life crimes, such as trespassing, sleeping in the park, which would be lodging, and other regular misdemeanors or some felony charges. The criminal justice system is offering treatment. So instead of just fixing what's happening, we're helping to devise a solution to the problem. So what caused the recidivism and charges to happen.
And then also probably decreasing the amount of incarceration.
Yes, absolutely.
And would you describe that as a benefit, and how?
Absolutely. Not only are we reducing the recidivism, it's reducing the amount of money spent. It costs a lot of money to harbor someone in jail for something that can be fixed on the outside. It's cheaper for us to provide mental health services, medications, and treatment to eliminate the problem rather than to keep incarcerating individuals.
So Jen, having worked with the people in mental health court and the professionals in the criminal justice system, do you think we need a mental health court?
Absolutely. We need a mental health court for the reasons why Adina described it. It's keeping people out of jails and getting them the services they need for treatment. I understand that society may believe that people need to be punished for their crimes. However, these people need to get help so they don't continue to commit these crimes. And in treatment court, they're getting the treatment from professionals that are helping them learn to live life without having to do things that are illegal. They're getting the services to cope with what they're dealing with. They're being pointed in the right direction to where they can get services. Because out in the community, they may not know where to go to get help. And unfortunately, they come in the criminal justice system where we have these now experts in the field to point them to get help. So the mental health court is basically it stops that revolving door for people coming in and out where they're getting the services and they're given the knowledge on how to live life without having to commit crimes.
Interesting. So, Catherine, let me ask you, there are always critics, and some people would say that jail is the appropriate punishment. And in fact, the sentencing guidelines in Florida say that the primary purpose of sentencing is punishment as opposed to rehabilitation. So what would you say to the individual who would argue that incarceration is more appropriate for punishment in the criminal justice system?
When you're struggling with a mental illness, the idea is treatment, right? And so if you're incarcerating someone, you're just perpetuating the problem because they're not getting the treatment they need. By locking someone up, you're perpetuating what's already there. And in fact, you're likely growing the issue. And so instead of incarcerating someone and locking him or her up, we have this amazing privilege and diversion program for them to learn skills and tools that they need to manage their life every day on the outside world. And then as an added benefit, they can contribute to the community in a financial and productive way.
So tell us about what it is that you do with the participants in mental health court.
Okay, so since you asked, Judge Quartermaine, so I run a group, I like to call it Mindfulness with a Twist. So it is all based entirely on mindfulness, and mindfulness is the idea that we are living in this moment, in this breath. We are also not looking to change what life is throwing at you, but looking to understand that we can change how we respond to it. Can't change what life throws at you, you absolutely can change how you respond to it. But when you've grown up in an invalidating environment and you haven't gotten the support and consistency from your caregivers, your brain hasn't developed cognitively and you have no way to regulate your emotions, which is the biggest issue we're dealing with. How do you regulate your emotions? And when you have no skills to do that, but your brain is so incredible, you can learn to rewire it. So with the mindfulness and these concrete, tangible life management skills we're teaching them, we have seen tremendous progress in them making effective choices, learning to live their lives differently, and ultimately living a life worth living, right? This is what they're learning, and we're seeing it day to day. And when they have the chance to participate and practice these skills, especially when they don't need them, when they do and they're so overwhelmed, they're able to access them and make different choices.
Very interesting, and I agree, we have seen a lot of progress. So Jen, tell the viewers what it is that you do on a day-to-day basis.
I coordinate healthcare court. I screen the clients to make sure they're appropriate for the program. I get to see the wonderful changes that they are making in the program with going to therapy. Basically, I am the go-to person in healthcare court where the clients go. I provide the case management to them. I make sure they're getting the community resources they need. And what the program is, the clients come to us for outpatient services, for mental health therapy, for drug screening, for group therapy. They also have access to AR&P services, so they can get their psychiatric medications if needed. And all of this is for the clients to provide it to the clients free of charge. So there's no cost associated to the clients to attend these groups, which is a positive for them because it gives them time to work on themselves, and then they're encouraged to go out in the community and be productive now that they're able to be productive and have the proper resources. So I coordinate with their therapist to make sure they're doing everything they possibly can so they can be productive in society while in the program. And I think seeing that progress is basically the best part of the job.
Adina, why don't you describe what it is that you do?
So I am the supervisor of comprehensive treatment court. Do you want me to tell what the program is a little bit, or
Yes, I
just
think
my
we can
role?
talk about the differences between Jen and Adina's program. So yeah, if you want to comment on the target population.
So in Comprehensive Treatment Court, which is a new program that began in March of last year, we take the most vulnerable of the population. And for me, they're probably the ones with the most struggles and the most difficult to work through rehabilitation. Individuals are mostly homeless, have severe mental illness, and misdemeanor crimes. That being said, when we assess them initially in the jail, we try to get them out within 24 to 48 hours to start treatment. We offer a lot of the same services, the medication management, the therapy. We give them housing first, which is one of our main objectives. And then instead of them coming to an office, we go to them because there's a higher level of need. The problem is that when we're taking someone from homelessness to and putting them right into housing, there's a lot of things that need to be dealt with and many struggles that haven't been dealt with before. So our goal is initial stabilization of those mental health needs. A lot of my job is crisis intervention. So a lot of substance abuse. We're running to all of the homes on a regular basis, trying to teach new behaviors, new coping skills instead of substance abuse. And then we follow through with the court coordination with you on a bi-weekly basis. And we come for them in case they're not able to be there on their own.
So these are individuals with open misdemeanor cases that
Yes.
are primarily quality of life type crimes. So it's lodging, which is where they're basically living outside. It's open containers, so some smaller substance abuse charges, trespass is a common one, or petty theft, which we often see with petty theft of food or even beer. And so the folks that get arrested on those charges and are experiencing the most significant or serious mental illnesses are your people.
Are my people.
And the homes to which you refer that you were just discussing, these homes, those are homes that CTC has procured for these individuals upon release from custody.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's a difficult task, is finding the residences, right?
That is one of our hardest tasks. We do have relationships with great individuals in the community, such as Castle and Salvation Army. We have rooms there to offer some temporary housing, but there's just not enough. And then the individuals themselves have a lot of substance abuse issues that keep coming up, and it ultimately leads to them getting removed from the home or them spending their funds on substances and alcohol. So the need is much greater than what's available right now, even with those resources.
But is there any one person who you have not been able to find housing for that needed it in the program?
I have difficulty finding housing for individuals with continuing substance abuse. So what we would consider like wet houses. I'm having difficulty finding people to rent to an independent individual that can only that has $500 a month income available. That's a really low amount of income for a rental in Sarasota. And will let them drink, and that's possibly what's going to happen after treatment. So it's hard to find independent living where they can be themselves once we're out of the picture and they're set up with those outpatient services.
So how is success defined in CTC?
Success defined for us is reduced recidivism. So no more arrests, obviously, because we are still the criminal justice system component. Also being medication compliant, if that is something that they needed. Really just an improvement in their life skills. So instead of doing things that they did before, now they're able to be in a home, be safe, and not have to steal or sleep on a bench or any of the things that they did before they got to us. So my picture is much different than what would be for other individuals, because maybe for me, a better quality of life is buying a house and having my own car. That's not something that they're all looking for, and you got to stay at their level. So what does improvements look like for some of them, and some of them it's just the housing and stability and getting support.
Each person is different, and that's
Yeah.
definitely the challenge is identifying the specific needs and how that person is going to improve and what success is. And I think success is defined differently for everyone. That's
Right.
definitely one of the challenges. I mean, how would you define success within the mental health court program, Catherine?
I think success is tiny victory. I think we can all relate to sometimes we get really frustrated, but then you see someone and you've been working with that person for a long time. And for example, I have a woman in my group, and she has been in my group since the beginning, and she has come so far. And she came into group last week, and she had had a really rough day, and she had lost her job and her phone had died, and she had no way to get back to her house, which was 45 minutes away. And she said, all of a sudden, all my skills came rushing in, and I turned my mind and I turned my thinking, and I was sitting at my house with my pills in one hand and a glass of water in the other. And as I began using the skills I had learned in mental health court, I realized that I'm choosing to have a life worth living and not take the easy way out. And so she put the pills away and she put the water in the sink, and she chose to live. To me, I cannot think of a greater victory than that. I can't. So.
Yeah, that is a pretty amazing moment, especially when you can see the progress.
We are helping them save their own lives. And that, I think each of us, we're not here for any reason other than we want this world to be a softer place, and we want to minimize suffering as much as we can. That's why we do what we do. And when we see firsthand why we do what we do, then you're inspired and you're reinvigorated and you're empowered to go out and do it even better than you did the day before.
So it is an interesting concept, talking about how we are trying to improve the lives of those individuals. But crime, by definition, is something that has affected likely another person. Although quality of life type crimes are arguably not affecting other people. For example, someone who is sleeping outside, is that affecting another person? Well, I mean, I would opine that yes, it is. That is a crime. And when we have these homeless type camps, that those lead to more crime where there is actual harm, physical or otherwise, to another person. So how is it that you could describe the benefits to other people, not just, the participants?
So what we have a tendency to do, and because we're overwhelmed with the system, is we're sort of band-aiding what's going on, right? And we're overwhelmed and we're overworked and we're overloaded, and that's where we are right now. That doesn't mean that's always where we will be, but we work with what is, not what we wish were. Mm-hmm. And so this is where we are. And so what I found is that this is where you suss out the willing from the very willing. And when you have very willing people who understand they've made mistakes and they may have hurt other people, but when you start to peel back what's going on and you figure out where they're coming from and why they've done what they've done, and then you can really treat what's going on and not just the symptom. And they can understand, yes, they've hurt someone else, and how do we shift that? And they can make amends if that's possible, but they can make a different choice the next time. We can't undo what's been done, unfortunately, mm-hmm. right? We have to understand that, but we can shift and shape how we live going forward and the choices we make. And this is, I tell them all the time, this is entirely up to you. If you choose this, it is all yours, and we will do anything we can to help you. But it has to be up to that person.
Absolutely.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, good.
And it turns to another issue that I have heard percolate, and that is, well, individuals who are court-ordered to programs, do they really want to change? Do they really desire to have services or improvement in their life? And some are skeptical and say, oh, they're only doing it because the court has ordered it. But mental health court is different. It has to be voluntary. So then, how many of these individuals are simply avoiding jail by volunteering to participate in these substantial services. And it is substantial. It is a lot of tasks on a daily basis. So I'm going to ask Jen, how many percentage-wise of the individuals who come to you do you believe are legitimately desiring improvement in their life as opposed to just doing it because they have to?
I would say it's probably over 90% actually want to make a change. Whether they come in initially not thinking that, but in the end, when they actually start participating, because like you said, this is a very intensive program. You're in the office for mental health court 3 times a week at least, and then you're doing outside groups. It takes over your life. You have time to do nothing else at that point. So people begin to realize this is something that I said I wanted to do, and I'm gonna do it now. And when they start engaging and getting the skills and then getting that community of the participants in the program, I think they start really saying, oh, this is really helping me. Even if it's just the smallest thing they changed, they still made a change. So it's well over 90% of the clients that come in actually do make the true change. And even the 10% that say they did it just because they didn't want jail, they've learned something in the process because they've been clean and sober, they've been participating, they've had to have made some sort of change to get through the program. So it's a pretty significant amount. I think that if you're going to participate, anybody can benefit from services. And I think that the clients that come in are getting what they're asking for initially as a volunteer basis.
So tell us about what a client has to do from the point they enter into mental health court.
When they first come in the program, there's 2 different phases. So it's either 12 or 6 months in the program, depending on what their charges come in as, but they all have the same requirements. They have to come in for drug screening at least twice a week. They can't have any kind of substances in their system, including alcohol, unless it's a prescription medication for any kind of psychiatric reason. They have to attend 3 group sessions a week. If they have any kind of substance abuse, they have to attend possible AA meetings or NA meetings on the outside for community support. They have to see a licensed mental health professional at least once a week on a weekly basis.
For individual
Therapy once a week. And then they have the case management services where they come to me if they don't have housing or if they can't find a job or they want to get back enrolled in school. We help them with those case management services. So I like to say to my clients, if you're going to be in the program, it seems like a lot, but it definitely can be done with the scheduling. Because in reality, it's probably about 6 to 10 hours out of a week in the program. But if you're actually working the program, physically being there, it's a 24-hour job. You're learning things every day. You're doing things every day. So 10 hours in an office doing group, individual, drug screening, whatever it may be, it's only 10 hours a week, but it's a 24-hour-a-day job to be in healthcare court.
And then they have to come to court and report to me as the county judge, right?
At least twice a month. They're on a twice a month basis. They're reporting to court to make sure they're compliant. And they just, if they're doing what they're supposed to, it's a good time. If they're not, then we have to give them, the part of the crime is the punishment. You committed something, so if you're not doing what you said you were going to do, there's going to be, increased groups. So you have to do an extra group or extra drug screening, some volunteer work, writing letters of apology, whatever it may be, to fit whatever they didn't do in the program to be compliant. And I think the clients honestly love going to court and telling you how great they're doing.
And I love hearing it. It's like they can't wait to jump out of their seats and come up to the podium and discuss the progress that they've made.
They do.
And court is a fascinating place. I obviously love court, and mental health court is especially amazing because of the progress that we see. And I get to know these people as an individual, but I still am the last call. Mm-hmm. So I have to be that person that they will, respect and understand that if they do not engage or they are testing positive or making other mistakes, that they will be held accountable. So, while court can be very fun, it can also be very difficult when we see people struggle. And, there are sanctions before they get to me, like you were just discussing, which are increased group, increased urinalysis to make sure the urinalysis is accurate, because that, and if you do it on a daily basis, it's more accurate. But sometimes there are jail sanctions. And as the group of people in mental health court participate in groups, they get to know each other. They become each other's support system, but they also get to see how other people are going to be held accountable. And so it's interesting in court to watch the group as they see one person, you know, kind of flounder. And then they recognize also when they see that person get cuffed and put into custody for what we usually do is a sanction of less than 5 days, then you can see that kind of wakens them up and say, this is real, you know, this is real. I have made choices that have landed me in a place where I could be in jail. So I'm gonna, you know, it's the drug court model, which uses the ultimate sanction, jail, to push people along and encourage them. And that's interesting because people will say, well, if they're mentally ill, they shouldn't be in jail. So what do you say to that, Adina? What do you say about the sanction use of jail and the intersection with mental health court and mental illness?
Well, I think that's why I love mental health court, because we're meeting both needs, the judicial side, and we're also working to help them fix the problem that's leading to them being in the judicial system. And typically, no, from a therapeutic standpoint and everything that I learned from school, jail is not good. And maybe you're not getting all the services that you would need in jail, but what we have the ability to do is to provide them with a reason to continue treatment until they're ready to do it on their own. When they first come in, they don't know how to do it. You just don't know how to change all those behaviors. So with this thing behind you saying like, you need to follow through or this could happen, it's like, okay, let me try.
Because they know they don't want to go to jail.
Right, and you don't necessarily, when you have nothing, you don't necessarily have a reason to try. You've had nothing for so long. Why are you going to think things are going to get better? I've been doing it this way with this outcome. So that pushes them along, and so they try it, they start gaining all these little things back, and then they're able to do it on their own, and it's amazing.
So when you say that a person has nothing, can you think of an example that would help the viewers understand the circumstances from which some of these individuals come?
Well, there's so many stories. There's so many stories. I think that it's important to remember that we're all learning things every single day out there that I just would have never realized individuals' intense coping skills and survival skills that they have out there that I didn't know you needed to have if you were on the street. Like I said before, the majority of the individuals we serve are suffering from homelessness and severe mental illness. One of the things I learned in particular, like about the homeless camps, I went out to a homeless camp a couple weeks ago to help the individual get their clothes down from the trees. A lot of them bury their clothes, so I actually go out there and will help them dig them out.
And the purpose is to hide them so they know where they are?
Hide them so nobody steals them from them. So, you know, everyone is struggling for resources out there, which is another reason it leads to crime. If they can't get it, they have to find a way to get something, so they're stealing from another individual, the store. So through digging through things, finding things in the dirt, we see that they have all these coping skills, hiding food items out so that rodents eat on the food items instead of mess with them when they're sleeping. It's amazing the things that you learn to overcome when you have nothing.
Yeah, that's that's a different world. I mean, that is an unbelievable coping mechanism, and it's surprising that it's happening right here in our community. It's really pretty shocking. I mean, Jen, I'm sure you have some examples as well of people who come from nothing, and what is an example you could give the viewers about that, an individual who had nothing?
I have one in particular that I always think about. She came into our program literally, she was dependent on one person. She had nothing of her own. She had to ask for everything. This is an adult woman asking for items for day-to-day basis. Oh, I need to have breakfast, or I need feminine products, or I need to go outside and get some fresh air. Could do nothing on her own, couldn't speak on her own, always had to have this particular person with her, next to her, didn't have her own voice, unmedicated, addicted to substances that she probably shouldn't have been using. And we got her in the program, and she was in our program for a year, and she made a complete turnaround. While she was in the program, she came out of her shell. She started talking, engaging in therapy, medication compliant. She is living on her own, found her own housing, was able to get a part-time job. I believe that then turned into a full-time job when she was out of the program. She still calls me once a week to check in, to make sure things are going well. So it's seeing that person come from not being able to do anything on her own because she was struggling so severely without medication, to being on her own. And it didn't happen at a young age. It was, middle age. She's been dependent for so long on this person that now that she has that free, she was like, every time she calls me, thank you. I just want to thank you because I did not know that life did not have to be asking somebody for permission to go to the bathroom. So it's just that complete turnaround that will always be my success story in the program, because she was one of my very first clients when I started here, and she sticks with me to this day. So she is my bright star, my success story.
And that's what it takes. There are a lot of people we see both in mental health court and in the world generally, but also in criminal court, that have failed a lot and continue to fail in this moment. But it just takes a few that you see like that to keep us going and keep, the opportunities for people alive. So, Catherine, I want to ask you, because you spend a lot of time at the Salvation Army, you do your group sessions with our mental health court, but you also do them in the jail for people who are incarcerated and not in mental health court, and you do them at the Salvation Army. When you say or think of someone who has come from nothing, how would you describe that?
And I wish I could say I didn't know anyone who came from nothing, but when I was in the recovery pod at the jail yesterday, and working with these women who sometimes literally have nothing and are facing complete homelessness when they leave, are so full of light. And they know it might be buried all the way down in the tips of their toes, but they know it's there. And so each of these folks is relying on hope, and they're still alive. And sometimes maybe they wish they weren't, or they've tried not to be, but they know that there is a reason they're still here and that they are needed here. And I see it again and again. I see someone who has, even in mental health court, there's a woman who barely spoke when I started. And now she's going to graduate in February. She's going back to school for cosmetology. And yesterday she said, "May I share?" And I was like, yes, you may, please. I was more professional, but I was so She did, and she just opened up, and she was crying, and she was talking about her son and his illness and what she was going through, and she was crying. But the most, and I thought, my gosh, here she is going back to school because she set an intention and met it, and opening up emotionally. But not only that, was willing to put herself out there, and the support and lack of judgment she received from the rest of the group was so incredible. At one point, we all stood up in a circle and surrounded her and said a prayer for her son, and everyone had something supportive to say, and you could see her sort of looking in awe, like there are people out there and I don't have to do this alone. And we see it again and again, and there are plenty of other stories. But I think for the most part, as Jen was saying, and Jen is not giving herself enough credit for the incredible work that she does every day, all day. It's inspiring, and my perspective has shifted so much. I have nothing to complain about. I just don't. I mean, I look at how much I have and how the gratitude that has sprung up is just monumental.
It is. It does put things into perspective. I happen to know the individual you're speaking about, and I think it's important to share that at the inception of her case, there was actually a finding that this individual was incompetent.
Right, that's right.
Now, she happened to have two different cases going on. One was a misdemeanor, one was a felony, and the incompetency finding was in one, and there was the other one was silent. There was no issue. It wasn't raised. But incompetency, so that the viewers understand, is an extremely low threshold. It means that a psychiatrist determined that she could not even understand what was happening in court, and that she wouldn't know who the judge is, for example, or how to interact with her attorney. And now we're seeing a person who is just like us, because she's come out of her shell and she's willing to talk in groups and competent. When I say like us, we're meaning we're competent. I would like to think so most of the time. But I do think that because she was so scared of the world, that she simply just shut down.
Yeah,
and now, when she's got the support, she's, opening up. And why is this so significant in this case? Because she has 5 children.
Yeah, she has 5 children.
And what is the long-term reality if a woman like this were to go into jail, for example, and, because she was facing a felony, that a minimum is punishable by up to 5 years. Where would those 5 children go during that period of time? And then again, like you were saying, okay, so say she goes away for some period of time, she comes back and she has no skills, and now she's worse. Yes. Because it's pretty clear that those who have been to prison or incarcerated for significant periods of time are negatively affected. Now, I'm not saying prison is never appropriate, because there are circumstances where it is. There's no question about it. But it's a case-by-case basis. But in this case, nonviolent, clearly almost a nonverbal person. And now think of the positive effects on her children. That's where we have to look at the long term. So that's a great story. I love that story.
I want to add to that story because her world when she came in was sitting at home and her doing nothing. She would just sit there. And when she came in the program, she got that support. She's made friends in the program. She has, and one of her friends graduated, and in court, he was like, remember to text me. I want to come to your graduation. So they gained this support, and she gained this support that we don't really understand is happening until we see it from the clients. And when we see it and they start sharing their success stories, it makes the program just that much better, because that camaraderie is coming in. They're learning skills from each other to say, I know you're having a rough time right now because I was there, but look where I am now. Or when new clients come into the program, they can say, I can't do this. This is so hard. How do you guys do this? A person who's, 8 months in can say, I was there too, and this is how I got through it. So they definitely have that camaraderie for support that they gain that they wouldn't otherwise have.
And how many people are in mental health court, in your program, healthcare court right now?
Currently, we have 33 active clients.
And how many do you have in comprehensive treatment court?
28.
Okay, and just as a reminder, mental health court is composed of these 2 programs, but the result is funding related, that they were to address different populations. Jen's healthcare court clients are more high functioning than Adina's comprehensive treatment court. What are the types of mental illnesses that you see in healthcare court?
We see the whole spectrum.
Me too.
Anywhere from ADHD all the way up to schizophrenic with psychotic features. We've had some personality disorders. We've had depression, bipolar, and the mental health diagnosis is always the primary diagnosis in healthcare court. That is the primary focus of the mental health court, is to address the mental health. However, some of them do have a secondary diagnosis of substance abuse because they were using because they couldn't deal with what was going on in their head.
Right. And that's the next topic that I wanted to discuss, because there is a significant number of participants who have a co-occurring substance abuse disorder. I think probably 60 to 75% of your clients have that, right, in comprehensive treatment court. What would you say the percentage is where you are?
Probably right around the same, 60%.
So I'm going to ask Catherine, what do you think the reason for that is?
Well, partly we don't have the resources to treat the people we need to treat. And if you're seeing a psychiatrist for 15 minutes once, and that person sees you and says, you know what, you have paranoid schizophrenia, and I'm going to give you an antipsychotic. Well, he could be seeing that person on a day where he's displaying certain symptoms, but that's not actually his diagnosis, because you can't diagnose someone the first time you meet him or her. And so we're quick to medicate because, that's a way to placate it and maybe manage it temporarily. But I think when you are in so much pain and your heart is breaking and you can't breathe and you can't see and you can't bear another day and you just feel ill-equipped to deal with this life, you are going to do anything you can to stop that pain immediately. And you're not even thinking long-term. You're not even thinking if this could hurt me. You're just thinking, how do I get out of this pain so I can breathe?
Adina, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, like you said, the majority of individuals have co-occurring substance abuse. And I guess it's a similar situation, but for the individuals that I speak to mostly, it's a coping skill. Yeah. And it's something that they can afford. If they don't have the wraparound services, individuals can't pay to get the medication the next time. Right. But to bring that back to mental health court, on my side with the individuals that suffer with less competence, it's constant monitoring. So maybe your medications weren't right before and you couldn't get them before, but we have them, we have the funds, we're gonna provide them, and we're gonna bring you to the psychiatrist every Monday if that's what's needed. And we're gonna make sure that you get something that's right for you to address the problem instead of it leading to something else.
Well, and I think that's a significant issue is catching it before it leads to a problem. And some of my analysis of our data that we have just really begun to understand, because there's been enough time that has passed in CTC court to collect the data and really see what the trends are. But one of the trends that I observed was that the younger a person is, the more likely they are to achieve success. Mm-hmm. Now, most of the mental illnesses that you have are schizophrenia and bipolar. These are lifelong disorders, even though schizophrenia can be onset later on in life. So many of these people who are older, 50s or so, have been self-medicating for so long that it's, and I have hope for everyone, but it's significantly more difficult. Now, simultaneously, what we see in the juvenile system is an increase in mental health issues, and actually there was a report last year from USF regarding the substantial increase in Baker Acts of juveniles. And I think it was up, 6 times over a period of 5 years. Just really substantial. And, my position is that because there are no mental health services available, that when a parent, teacher, law enforcement professional comes into contact with an individual, a juvenile who is displaying signs of mental illness, there is nowhere else for them to go but to a Baker Act. And there is a huge gap between needing therapy and being Baker Actable, okay? Baker Act is the imminent threat to yourself or others. But because there is nothing in between, the juvenile jumps right to the worst possible scenario. And in the course of that scenario, because they do not meet the criteria, even though they may be especially difficult juveniles, they get no treatment at all. But the Baker Act process has been extremely expensive, and then that they're discharged with nothing. So I have begun to believe that the most important issue is getting these services to juveniles and to stop it before we see the co-occurring substance abuse. But I know you all primarily work with adults. Do you see that in your line of work with juveniles?
I'm also a guardian ad litem in the court system, and so I work very intimately with that. And we are struggling. We have more children than we have beds. Our shelters are full and our foster homes are full, and we are struggling. Where do we get the services for these children? And how do we get the caregivers to transport them? And where do they go? What do we do with them? I mean, in Manatee County, for instance, I think we have 250 kids and 150 beds. Don't quote me on that statistic, but the point of that is that we have more children than we know what to do with.
Right. And so then all of us who work in this see the long-term effects of
Correct.
it.
Right.
So yes,
Yep.
I would encourage those in the community to definitely take the models of mental health court, the wraparound services, whether it's within the criminal system, the juvenile criminal system or not, but otherwise a lot of them will be coming to see us in the future.
Many of them do, and some of them I've had the pleasure, I guess, to work with on a longer term basis, and if I had all the time in the world, I could follow, but we don't have the resources to do follow-up care. And so maybe you follow them for 6 months, but then you've lost them. And then you're sort of,
Right,
around and around we go.
These systems cannot hang on to the individual
Correct.
forever. And,
Exactly.
as much as we would love to, monitor these people,
Yeah.
at some point they graduate and they are part of the world again, outside of our little world. And, you hope that the assessment at that time, which was, okay, you are prepared to do this, was correct. But obviously, we don't have a crystal ball, we don't know. But I do think you have some recidivism rates from the clients who have participated in healthcare court over the years, which has been in existence, I think, now for over a decade since Judge Owen started it. So what are the recidivism rates that you see?
Right now, our recidivism rate's only 17%. As of November 2017, 17% of the clients who were successfully graduated from the program have committed a new crime within 2 years.
Okay. And I think it's important for the viewers to understand that a normal recidivism rate is usually in the 50 percentile rate, just for your average person to get, no one's really an average person, but generally the criminal system, it's about 50 to 60%. Once they've entered, they're going to continue to re-enter. So it is an improvement. Is it worth it? Is a 30% improvement worth it, Adina?
Absolutely, it's worth it. Absolutely. Just, financially, emotionally, for the client, for their families. We're reuniting families. We're helping them to rebuild those relationships. Just for me, just one person is worth it.
Yeah, right.
I just need that one to keep me going. So can we say it's worth it? It's a person. It's a human being. It could be your brother, your sister, your son. And that's what you need to remember, that it's just another human being, and we don't know what their path was that led to this, but we have an opportunity to help them fix it, and that's what keeps us going.
So do you have, and you've been working in this field for a long time, but just with respect to the CTC program, do you have one particular success that you'd like to share?
One particular success.
I know there's been lots.
I have so many people just thinking about that makes me happy. And when days are hard, I remind our other staff of those individuals and them calling. I guess just to choose a small package of an individual would be a gentleman that was nonverbal when we got him, and nonverbal not due to him being in a psychotic episode at the time, like not active psychosis, but nonverbal from possibly a head injury. We can't always find out an individual's past. It's like Pandora's box. But he couldn't speak, and he had trespassing charges, lodging. What we did find out was that he had Social Security, but hadn't been receiving it in years. It had just been piling up. We didn't know where it was going to. We did get his funds fixed and got him in a group home where they provide meals. he wandered a lot. We got him a bracelet so that he could always find his home again because he would get lost. And every day that I see him, there's not a lot of words that he can express, but he smiles and he'll run and try to hug you. It's just, you just know that he's happy. He can't verbalize it, but you know that he's in a better place and that he likes being where he is, and he's.
This individual was sort of wandering the streets before.
Yeah.
And was he an elderly individual?
Elderly.
I think in his 70s, if I'm thinking of the right
Yes,
person.
you are.
So yeah, a totally vulnerable person and on a trespass, I
Yeah.
think.
The most vulnerable. Like, I mean, it's not necessarily safe out there. The more vulnerable the population, which, you know, ours is the toughest, they're getting robbed, they're getting beat up. Any resource that they do get is getting taken. So it's really important what we do.
Yeah. So, so we have had a lot of successes, and those are the things that keep us going. But we've also experienced some failures. So let me go to Jen. What is a disappointment that you have experienced? You know, maybe the one that stands out the most.
I mean, it really is the lack of resources that we can provide to people that they need. I think that three ladies sitting with me can agree that the biggest issue is housing for clients, because they are in such a need of, if they don't have anywhere to go, they're going to do things to get what they need. So providing someone with housing may not be the best thing because they can't, you know, confer with the rules that they're being given because they don't have that ability to follow the rules. So definitely a higher level of housing for clients is a big issue that I think all of us can agree with. For placing someone in a home where they're expected to do chores and they really don't have the ability to do chores, so they're kicked out of these homes, and there's the cycle of where are they going to go? Where do we put these people?
Well, and the argument, well, they should go out and get a job. Many of these people could never work. And it's not because of anything or any action they've undertaken, it's because of the way they were born. So, and is that something we hold against an individual? Would you tell a person in a wheelchair, for example, go out and do manual labor? That it's not possible. So we have to be understanding of the abilities that they have and stop moving them from place to place and get to the bottom of the issue and invest the resources so that everyone can live a productive life, and then society can feel good about what they're doing and not have any crime within the society. So we are getting close to the end here, and I'm going to give each of you a moment to sort of give any final thoughts that you have about mental health court and the intersection between criminal justice and mental health. So I'll start with Adina.
I just want everyone to know that us coming out here is a way of spreading the word and also getting additional resources and letting everyone know that we're attempting to fill those gaps through speaking here and through Centerstone and the judicial system doing our trainings throughout the community. We're trying to address all those different areas, even the judicial and juvenile system. By giving people knowledge, you're empowering them to make the right choices and to seek help soon, prior to it getting to this point. But we're there to help.
Jen, final thoughts?
And supporting the mental health courts gives people with that mental health illness, they don't have to have that stigma of being afraid. They get that camaraderie and that support within the program. And then afterwards, they can go out and they can be advocates for people with mental health. Even if they're not committing a crime, they can still be an advocate. Like, it doesn't have to be this way. I, unfortunately, had to take a different route, and I had to learn the hard way, but I'm here for you and I can support you, because some of our clients are affiliated with other programs such as NAMI. They go out there, or mental health community centers, they go out there and get connected with the community to spread the word about their mental illness, and it doesn't have to be, I'm just gonna hide in the corner and pretend to go away.
Right.
Amen.
Final thoughts, Catherine?
It's a privilege. I mean, we're working for justice for everyone, right? And I love what Adina was saying, because these are human beings. In so many ways, they are no different from you or me. And so we're here to help them save their own lives. And that's why we're here.
Well, it has been a pleasure to have all of you here today and to work with all of you. It is a gift to have you all in my life and in my working life. I just am so thankful for everything you do and the passion that you have. So It is a privilege, it really is, and I would just simply encourage the viewers to become educated. There are organizations like Stepping Up that provide a lot of information online, and I think we're doing a good thing, and I'd like to see it continue. So thank you all for joining us in this discussion on this very important issue. Thank you to the Manatee Educational Television for making this show possible, and a special thank you again to my guests and the viewers. Thank you for watching.